Hey, Mortgage Coach community, Dave Savage here, and today I am interviewing the one, the only Steve Marshall. What's up, Steve?
Hey, thanks for having me on board.
Well, it's good to have you in the Mortgage Coach community. I have interviewed Stephen countless times, but I've never done it in a formal setting where we're like videotaping it. Most of my interviews with Stephen have been, hey, we're two friends that have grown up in this mortgage industry together, and we're like interviewing each other, and it's this thing called masterminding. So it's going to be fun to do something intentional and do something for the whole mortgage industry. So Stephen, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, if you could just give them, might be some new loan officer watching a Mortgage Coach thing and they're going, who's this Steve Marshall guy? If you could just give us a minute on who is Stephen Marshall.
Hey, my background, been in the industry for years. Started as an originator, worked 20 years as an originator, had a nice run, averaged about $100 million in production over a 14-year period. Best years, did $200 million a year, 3 years in a row. Also ended up being a partner in a good-sized mortgage company that sold. But really, what I'm passionate about is networking and masterminding and sharing best practices with originators. So, I've spent my career, whether it's the magazine, Mortgage Executive, or some of the events we offer, just adding value to originators and helping them take their business to the next level.
Well, I think I'd be surprised if too many people watch this and they're like, oh, that's just, they may not have realized just what a top producer you are, because I think you're so well known now between your magazine that issues the top 1%. I think a lot of people know that magazine, and I think a lot of people know your event. By the way, how many people have gone through your Mastermind Summit in Las Vegas? Like, what's the number of loan officers that have been through that experience now?
Yeah, so we've if you include somebody that's gone, multiple times, right? So you include but 20,000 attendees over the last decade. So we're climbing in terms of number of people that have attended our live events.
Love that. Well, I want to make this call about two things. We're going to close the call with whether you're going to be at Mastermind Summit, how to get the most value, and why you should go in 2018. That'll be the close. I want to do for the next 5-10 minutes, just for whether it's a new loan officer who's just getting started in the business, like you and I used to be once upon a time, and we want to talk to them about how can you just mastermind, at the company you're at? How can you mastermind at the community? How can you mastermind at any event you go to, whether or not it's Mastermind Summit or not? Let's just talk about your journey and how you mastermind to build the career and the success that you have. So let's just start with that. Like, you've been very intentional about masterminding for your entire career. Walk us through the young Steve Marshall and how you went about that.
Hey, great question. So, been a lifelong learner, right? I'm a networker. I love to find best practices, and I'll paraphrase some of the things I've learned from Tony Robbins over the years, but he taught me when I was really young that success leaves clues. He also taught me that you become a direct reflection of the people you hang around, right? And so he really taught this concept of modeling. Go out and find what the best of the best are doing, interview them, extract every best practice you possibly can, and go implement it, right? So rarely do you hear of a loan officer that went from making $200,000 a year to making $2 million a year, that was out on an island somewhere, that completely invented some breakthrough idea all on their own. Almost invariably, when you find someone that's crossed that $1 million W-2 threshold, they're a learner, they're a networker, they're out there finding best practices, they're hiring coaches, they're interviewing people. And what I find the most valuable thing isn't actually going to events or hiring a coach. Now, certainly those are things I believe in, and I've done it my whole career. The most valuable thing, this is really what Dave and I wanted to focus on, is just interviewing other top originators with a passionate zest for finding out what works, right? That's really the value of going to an event, if there was one, is when you're there, is pulling someone aside and finding out what really are they doing that's unique. So, Dave and I were part of a mastermind group 20 years ago, and we would get together and we'd say, what works for you? What doesn't work for you? How is your team structured? How do you compensate your team? How are you getting loans through the system faster? What are you doing to be more successful? And what you'll find is there's little distinctions. And here's how I would describe it, Dave. One of the things I'm most proud about about the mortgage industry. And it's very unique. It's not like this in the dry cleaner industry or, the carpet cleaning industry or any other industry, but the mortgage industry, people get together and share best practices. Iron sharpens iron. We get together and we network and we share what works, right? In most other industries, people hold best practices close to the vest, right? They don't want their competitors to know what their secret sauce is or their original recipe is. In the mortgage industry, in almost all cases, you can interview a top producer in your own company, take them out to lunch, whatever the case, and find out what really allows them to be successful. What would you add to that, Dave?
No, I totally agree. I want to talk about all the different venues in which you can be masterminding with people. Because all of my success in this business has come from the relationships I built, like you, like Tim Brahim, like Todd Duncan, and the list goes on. Just this list of people that I've learned from in a very intentional way. I've done life with, I've gone to dinner with, I do lunches with, I go to coffee. I just interviewed Steve Scanlon, and a lot of that relationship and what I've learned from Steve, came from him and I meeting at coffee, and me taking notes, being intentional about that. So let's do two things. One, I want you to talk about when you are meeting with someone, masterminding, what kind of note taking do you do? What is your rhythm after the meeting? How do you take what you learned and put it into action? And then let's go into different venues, and we'll close out with the big venue, your event in Vegas. So walk us through best practice. I'm masterminding with a loan officer. I'm taking them to coffee or lunch or whatever. How do you take notes? How do you take what you learn and put it into action? Go.
Great. Well, let me give kind of a story. I'll share an example. Probably a mutual friend of ours, Jeff Lake, who's one of the top originators in the country over the last 20 years. So I'm going to go back in the time machine a little bit to the first year I closed $100 million, right? And I thought I was, really knocking it out of the park. I was ranked one of the top 50 originators in the country at the time by Mortgage Originator Magazine, which did the rankings, was feeling really good, just shy of $1 million W-2 income. And along comes Jeff Lake that doubled my production, doubled my income, and it blew my mind, right? I thought, how is it even possible to do more? And so Jeff allowed me to go out and do a site visit. So I flew out to Jeff's, because in my point, Jeff serves as a really good example, because when you interview a lot of top producers, they don't really know, either they're modest or they can't describe what makes them unique. So you have to be a really gifted interviewer. You've got to, I'll give you an example. It's kind of like a master chef that just makes great food, and they don't have a recipe, or they don't think they have a recipe. So you have to kind of stand over their shoulder as they're cooking and go, stop. Okay, how much of that spice did you put in there? Or how much sugar did you put in there? Because there is definitely a recipe, even if they don't think there's a recipe, even if they think they just get up. We all know that it's virtually impossible, not impossible, but feels virtually impossible to make $2 million W-2 income in the mortgage industry. But there are a number of people doing it, and they have a system. And if you model their system, do what they do, you could also make $2 million in this industry. So I flew out and spent the day. And what he let me do is be a fly on the wall. He literally let me sit in his office for a day, because I would meet him. I'd meet him at in fact, I remember one time we were on stage at an event together, and I described all these great systems. This is a while ago that I did to be successful. And he got up after me and said, you don't really do any of that stuff. You just do loans. And I'm like, Jeff, there's more than just doing loans. There's a system, and I want to know your system. So I went out and spent the day with him in person. And here's what I found is a lot of people have described this nurse's office, doctor's office approach to doing loans, but I've never seen anyone execute it as flawlessly as Jeff, because Jeff would say, look, he did 1,000 loans that year. Wrap your mind around that. This is back when his average loan amount was 200 grand. So he did 200 million with an average loan amount of 200 grand. No one's doing 1,000 loans today. He was doing 1,000 loans. He said, and I meet with virtually all my clients. And I said, impossible. It's not possible. I'm doing 500 loans, working myself to death. I'm one of the top 50 originators in the country. So here was the secret, and I only got it from spending the day in his office. He literally had an office, and imagine this, you got an office, and inside the same office there's a conference table. And what he would do is And he let me sit. I think he made up a joke to some of the clients that came in that I was there doing an audit or something. But I literally sat there for 8 hours. I flew out to Chicago, as busy as I was, as much money as I was making. And his secret, because you're probably all curious, how's this guy doing it? What he would do is when he would meet with a client, his assistant would meet with the client with him. He would build rapport for a few minutes with the client, basically get them to close, and then he would step away and let his assistant do all the paperwork. But he was so busy, he stayed in the same office with the client and started calling back other clients to set up the next appointments or to pre-qualify them or to sell them. And he was so good at what he's doing that when he's talking on the phone to one prospect, he's got another client sitting over there listening in on, or he's calling the realtor, letting him know that they're pre-approved, sitting in his office. It was like a dentist's office. If you've been to a well-run dentist's office, there's 4 or 5 assistants. We're all in chairs. We're all kind of numbed up. And the dentist bops back and forth between them. And I really wrap my minds around of, hey, there are things as a top producer that you can do where you can get paid $500 to $1,000 to $2,000 an hour. Just do those. And I know we all hear about it, but it wasn't until I spent time interviewing a top producer, and it changed my life. After that year, 3 years later, I did $200 million in production, and I took 14 weeks off to go to Mexico with my family because I put in place a system and a team and ran my practice like a dental office. So that's how you want to interview. You want to go in there, and even if they're modest or busy or I just do loans, you're like, look, you want to go interview the best of the best. The other value of it is you might be doing $30, $40 million a year, making more money than you ever dreamed, right? And there's nothing wrong with making 200, 300, 400 grand in this business. But when you talk to someone that's making $1 million a year and you really go in with kind of a passionate desire to mastermind and network and interview them, you can come away with a few distinctions that in many cases can make all the difference of the trajectory of your career.
All right. So first of all, awesome story. I also want to break this down for people that are at different points in their career. And not everybody has that goal to be that $100 million producer. You know, some people are doing 10 million and they want to go to 20 million. That's the goal. Some people are at 20, they want to go to 30. Some people want to go from 40 to 60. First of all, there's different people that have different goals, different markets. And here's where I want to take the conversation now, Stephen, is just the intentional ways, regardless of whether you're at in your career and what your income goal is or what your production goal is. I'm going to throw a few ideas out, and then Stephen, let's just play off of this. So first of all, it's about being intentional. Stephen was really clear about what he wanted to do, and he picked someone, and he did it. He was willing to fly across the country to do it. I have flown across the country and done a lot of site visits. Back early in my career, we were part of a mastermind group where we would go and visit each other. By the way, I think that's a great idea. Nothing better than doing site visits. Call that the top of the mountain of masterminding. But I also say, like when I look at all the folks that have, started using Mortgage Coach and have gone from, whether you're a $100 million producer or a $10 million producer, a lot of the stories have to do with just talking to someone else. That's why I do so many interviews and I interview so many top people. Think of all the interviews in our YouTube channel as like little mini masterminds. You want to hear a story about how, Wally Elderberry went from here to there and how he does it. Watch a Mortgage Coach interview. They're little mini masterminds. But I want to say you can go do lunch with people. You can go do coffee with people. You just need to be intentional. Like, who are you going with? What do you want to learn? And obviously you can't learn everything with a coffee meeting or a lunch meeting, or sitting by a pool. Some things require going and doing a site visit, but there are some things that you can learn having coffee. So Stephen, why don't you share, I don't know if you have a story where that's a little lighter than a site visit, but where just inviting a top producer in your city to coffee or lunch, any stories come to mind or any ideas that might be helpful for folks?
Yeah. So let me nail two kind of quick concepts. One, you hit it right on the head, right? I used an example of going from 100 million to 200 million, but that's not everyone's goal, right? Now, I think it's a realistic goal for everyone to say, I want to double my income and double my time off. And let's emphasize double the time off, right? Because I'm at a stage actually in my career where, I think many of us have heard the book 4-Hour Work Week, right? It sounds kind of like a pipe dream. How did someone really work 4 hours a week? I'm at the stage now, it's how do you make a lot of money and do it working 4 hours a week, right? So if you're happy with the amount of money you're working, how do you do it and spend more time with your family, more time traveling, more time? How do you do it on your schedule, right? I remember, as important as making a lot of money when I was younger, I felt like I was trapped by the industry, right? If I stepped away for 2 seconds, loan was going to blow out and close 2 days late. My best agent was going to fire me. So systems are about more money, but they're really about more life. I'll give you a lighter example. So a couple years ago, I was one of the top producers in my company. So I, owned my own company a number of years ago, ended up merging with another company, got out of day-to-day loans for a while, got into kind of coaching events, and then got back into loans when the industry blew up in 2008, 9, and 10. So by 2011, I'm back to doing $100 million a year in production. And I sat down and interviewed one of the other top producers in our company. So I'm the coach. I at that stage had done well over $1 billion in loans in my career, but I'm a learner, right? What are you doing to do so many loans? And when I found what she was doing, simple concept. She went out and did CE classes for real estate agents, right? Not all that complicated. Got approved, gave CE courses, heavily marketed them, got tons of people into her courses, and then went and built relationships with everybody after the course that was a top agent. That single idea allowed her to go in 4 years from being a good loan officer to one of the top loan officers. So here I am, like an old dog, new trick. I'm like, it's been a while since I've done CE courses. Why am I not out there doing courses for real estate agents if I want to add? So the point being, if you peel back the onion, you'll find as you interview top producers, and you want to go in, you really want to understand a number of things. What are they doing to prospect and market to generate leads, right? Money-making ideas. You also want to find out what are either things that they've done well or mistakes they've learned from in building a team to keep them in their unique ability, right? So you don't either make the same mistakes or you can fast track what you're doing. So find out how their systems work in running the loan process so they free up their time, kind of a doctor-dentist model. And then also find out what they're doing. Their scripts. I'm a big person on scripts. What exactly do you say to a real estate agent when you meet them for the first time? And you might find, wow, that's a little bit better than what I do. What direct mail piece do you send to a cold agent before you've ever met them, right? Find out the little recipes that have allowed them to be successful. And so I go into the notepad and I'm always looking for, I'll tell you one of my favorite questions to ask somebody in an interview is I ask them, look, if you had to start all over again, this is what you ask somebody that's not really good at describing their systems, right? They're just kind of somebody that's good, but they have trouble kind of articulating what makes them so good. So I ask them, hey, if you had to start over in a brand new city, you couldn't bring your database, all you could bring is your knowledge, and you wanted to get back to $100 million as fast as possible, what would you do in the first 100 days? And really, the more thoroughly they think through that, the more you can kind of understand what their best practices are, because that's what they would do if they had to start over in a new city. I would target the top 100 financial planners in the marketplace. I would call the top 100 real estate agents with this script, and I'd direct mail them all this, and I would get this agent to refer that agent. I do these events, I do these power lunches, and they would describe their process, and then that becomes a blueprint in many cases for what you may want to do over the next 100 days. So I'm constantly interviewing with those types of questions.
Love. First of all, that was huge question, everybody. So a couple things. One of the best calls I ever did on scripts was with Tim Brahim, Jeremy Forcier, and Danny Harani. I'm going to put a link below to that interview. Incredible. The Mortgage Coach YouTube page is filled with masterminds on how to do that. I also want to recommend everybody do realtor masterminds. I'm going to put a link down below. I've done a recent recording on how to do a realtor mastermind. Let's close out, Stephen. I'm passionate about your event, looking forward to it. I think 2018 is an important year for loan officers to get together and mastermind. Technology is completely reshaping the mortgage industry. And I think, for the referral-based local loan officer, 2020 is a year where, the haves and the have-nots is just going to fall off a cliff. And loan officers that are implementing modern strategies, implementing modern technology are just killing it and beating loan officers that aren't. So it's an important year. Why don't you give us just a minute on why Mastermind 2018? Why should loan officers, make time, make a reservation, spend a lot of money to go to Las Vegas this year? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, great question, right? And I think I described earlier, I spent my whole career investing in myself, right? There is no higher return on investment than investing in yourself and looking for those strategies to take your business to the next level. Rather than describe why you should come, let me just describe the content you'll get at the event. I'll give you an example. One of our speakers was the #1 Coldwell Banker agent in the world, right? #1 agent in the world. He's going to interview the currently number two loan officer in the country as ranked by our magazine, right? So here's a guy doing $400 million in production as a loan officer. Blows my mind, right? And you're going to have a top agent interviewing a top loan officer, finding out what works for them. I can tell you what I'm going to cover in my session is I personally interviewed, as you can tell, I'm an interview nut, right? So if you go back over the last 15 years, if you took the top 200 loan officers in the country, right? Or another way of looking at it, if you took loan officers that have closed over $100 million in production in a given year over the last 20 years, I probably personally interviewed 60 or 70 of them myself. And what I'm doing is I'm taking all the best practices that I've used, all these nuggets I've learned from the top producers, and I'm boiling it into a fast-paced, tactical, and very specific and strategic blueprint, right? So I'll just give you idea after idea. Here's the script this person used. Here's the system they used. Here's how they built their team. Here's what they did to double their income. Here's what they did to triple their time off. And it's going to be very tactical, very specific. So a lot of top producers sharing their best practices, a lot of the top coaches in the industry. And of course, our keynote speaker this year is me, President George W. Bush, highest rated speaker we've ever had at our event, actually outscored Tony Robbins, outscored all the people from Shark Tank, outscored Magic Johnson. So amazing. We're going to have President Bush live and in person at the event, and we're going to have many of the top originators and top coaches in the industry sharing best practices. And then as we talked about earlier, the most valuable part of the whole event is you're there with 2,000 other like-minded top producers. You go out and have a drink, go out and go to lunch, go out and network and find out what they're doing to be successful. I really encourage all the speakers to make themselves available after they speak so you can come up to them, get their best practices, find out what really works for them. So Mastermind provides this really unique opportunity. It's hard-hitting, just a couple days, 2.5 days. You can come in, get the best practices, fly into Vegas, have a good time. Our parties are becoming legendary. A lot of the companies sponsor great parties. So it's a lot of fun, great learning experience, a lot of hard-hitting, tactical, and very specific ideas to not only help you make more money, which is absolutely the theme of the event, but how to have more time off and do the things that are important to you. And if you're interested, you can go to mastermindsummit.com, www.mastermindsummit.com. Use the promo code COACH, and that'll get you $400 off the event. It applies towards any of the tickets there. So get your $400 off, which is a $200 early bird plus an extra $200 corporate discount that we got from Mortgage Coach users. So $400 off if you go to mastermindsummit.com. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be an awesome event this year. Last time I had President Bush, we completely sold out and had to turn people away. He's such a big draw. We think we're probably going to do again this year. So make sure you reserve your hotel room early. Make sure you book your ticket early. It's going to be an incredible event this year. Anything you
Love
would add?
it. So, well, I'm going to put a link below. So if you're watching this on Facebook, there'll be a link in comments. If you're watching this in YouTube, there'll be a link below. If you got value from this interview, which obviously Steve and I would love to see you in Vegas. We'd love to see you at that event. But when we did this interview, we wanted to give you value. And I think you got lots of value. You got some ideas from Steven. You got questions to ask from Steven. If you liked it, like this in YouTube, share it with your mortgage friends, get the word out. Again, I will put a link below in the YouTube description to sign up for the event. Use the coach password, save $400. One last tip I'd love to give everybody, because it's an all-star cast of content. It's a great venue to have dinners, to mastermind. But there's also distraction. You know, the parties are great, but if I had one piece of advice, take great notes, stay an extra day, you know, or if you do have to go home, schedule some time after that event to, you know, get clear on, hey, I got 100 ideas or I got 5 ideas. Get clear on the one that you're going to implement. Obviously, I'm with Mortgage Coach. I'm very passionate that delivering every family a total cost analysis is the best way to deliver value. But get clear on whatever that is that you're going to implement and execute after the event. Stephen, I'll let you have the last words. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up this video interview?
No, I think you covered it really well, Dave. I mean, I would just really encourage people to invest in yourself. Man, sharpen the saw. There are strategies out there that will allow you to make more money and take more time off. Why reinvent the wheel if there's someone out there that's already maneuvered through all the maze of systems and processes and marketing strategies, and you can find out what the best are doing. It's free. I mean, they give you their ideas for free. You come there, here's our best ideas, you mastermind them, you network them, and you take it home and you implement it. That's the key to success in our industry.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Like this, share this, ask us questions below. We'll see you in Las Vegas, June 6th, 7th, and 8th. Right, Stephen?
Yep, June 6th, 7th, and 8th in Las Vegas at the Palm Resort.
Take care, everybody.